Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Front Porch with United Capital Management. And this evening, our guest is Brian DeMint, D-E-M-I-T, the author of this book. Light's kind of poor, but it's called The Bitcoin Evangelist. Okay, so Brian, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Chad. I'm happy to be on with you.
I need to put on a bunch of disclaimers. This evening we can dive really deep. We're not talking to a CEO of a publicly traded company that has to be careful what he says, and so this is going to be more fun. We're talking to an author of a great book, and how I learned of this book and bought it and read it and have listened to it maybe 1.5 times on my app. I started Googling Bitcoin in the Bible just to see if any evangelists or any Christian authors had picked up and written anything, and I come across his book, and so that's why I reached out to Brian, and of course why I read the book. And Brian, one of the things that when you emailed me, you wanted to talk about Christian apologetics. Let's just dive right into that and give us your take on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that the way that I came to a stance in Bitcoin was very, very similar to the way that I came to my faith. I was a skeptic when it came to God and the veracity of the Bible, and I think that's everybody's journey is different. But for me coming to Bitcoin, it sounds weird saying I came to Bitcoin. It sounds too religious. But the way that I approached Bitcoin was in that skeptical sense. I knew a few guys that kind of dabbled in it. They were dabbling in it purely for investment sake, and that's fine. Everybody can be in it for their own reasons, but they didn't understand the fundamental tenets of Bitcoin, and that was what I wanted to know about. Well, if this is going to go up in value, give me the reason for it. Why is this sound money? And so I needed to, or I came at it from a skeptical kind of non-believer standpoint. But yeah, going back 15 years before that, that's how I was 14 years old when I was saved, and I was a junior high, young high school atheist. That was kind of popular culture to be skeptical, either agnostic or atheist. I found that that it seemed a little bit more authentic to make a decision, right? The agnostic says, I don't know if there's a God. I thought I was so arrogant to believe that there absolutely is no God. But the arguments are quite simple in terms of Christian apologetics, and people find some that are more compelling arguments than others. But it's something that you kind of referenced when we were talking off air about before, is how sophisticated the human body is. Technology 20 years ago or 25 years ago when I was becoming a Christian was a lot less sophisticated even than it is now. AI and all those things were far less advanced. But I remember that one of the really compelling arguments for the argument for why there's a creator, not Jesus Christ yet. You have to get to why there's a creator first, and then of the gods, which God is true. But the really compelling argument for there being a God was that the most sophisticated computers in the world, and now fast forward to today, even the most sophisticated computers in AI, which have billions of dollars of research and development, and the most brilliant minds in the world, the most brilliant intelligent minds in the world, haven't created an artificial mind as sophisticated as the human mind. And the human mind is only one element of what makes us a human being. Our immune system is this brilliantly complex thing. The human eyeball is this brilliantly complex system. The auditory system, the way that we smell, the way that we touch and feel, the way that we reproduce, all these systems are incredibly complicated, and the most brilliant minds haven't found ways to replicate any one of those systems, let alone put all those systems together into a cohesive, sensible, rational organism that's capable of love and feeling and all these different things. So that was a really compelling argument, is that what we are is so far more complicated than anything that humans could develop at that time, and fast forward to today, even more complicated than what we can develop today. And one of the arguments that kind of stamped that for me in addition was I believe it was Frank Turek. Frank Turek's this great apologist, and he said, if you were walking on the beach and you saw written in the sand, I love you, the words, I love you with all of my heart, love Tom, you would never tell your friend if you're walking on the beach with them, hey, I bet the waves created those letters right there. And that perfect order, that order that makes sense, that's rational, it communicates a message, it communicates a feeling, it communicates something sensible. In a million years, you would never make the argument that the waves, by accident, by chance, no matter how much time you gave it, that the waves created those letters in that perfect order. And now the perfect order of I love you with all my heart, love Tom, is a very unsophisticated message that's far less complicated than the information in the human genome, for example. The human genome, something in the order of complexity to 1,000 encyclopedias. So if one phrase cannot happen by accident, then certainly 1,000 encyclopedias worth of information it cannot be accounted for by chance and time. It just cannot happen that way. So those arguments like that were very compelling for me in terms of coming to the understanding that there is a creator. Now I'd be happy to go into the apologetics that led me into the veracity of the Bible, but it's things like that I think are good, because nowadays the fact that I didn't just jump into my faith, I didn't just get into it without thinking about it. Now I'm able to use that as a tool in my evangelism belt going forward, because as we talked off air, there's still a lot of atheists in the world. There's still a lot of agnostics. And so being able to give a sensible, rational reason for the faith that we believe, I think it's a good thing.
Well, maybe you can tell me the verse, coming to Christ with childlike faith and, believing, and you came at it at age 14. You must have had a lot higher IQ than I did at that time. Any health care in your background, parents or anything like that? So,
in terms of healthcare?
Yeah, because it almost, when you from a science and medical perspective, you think that's a natural route to. What you just said is just unbelievable, and I've never heard that analogy, and I will use that. But yeah, creating a human, didn't just happen with an explosion, and nor did it happen over time with apes, and so. If you want to go in the second part of that, go ahead. We can save the Bitcoin to later.
Yeah, no, I think that most of the arguments from atheists that I read were talking about these biological systems. So it's not that I have parents that were in healthcare or doctors or, we'd studied science in school, and I felt that my biology teachers who were teaching us about biology, I'm like, you're really describing a really complicated system here. And then your reason for how that system developed, it's kind of a dumb answer. Like, I was really frustrated that this is what I'm being taught in school, and this is what I'm trying. At the time, I was trying to believe that. I wanted a good answer. I wanted to be an atheist because it left me moral autonomy. At 14, you want to do whatever you want to do, and so if there's no God, I get to do what I want to do. And so I was looking for a good, rational reason to be an atheist, and I felt that the best answers out there for atheism, they left you wanting more. And so I think most people just say, they're satisfied with moral autonomy. Well, I don't need a good answer. I just want to be able to do whatever I want. So most people stop at that point, but I would genuinely wanted to know the answer.
Out of curiosity, where did you go to high school and what age are you now?
I am 37 now, 14 at the time. And then I went to public school. I went to Riverside Poly High School, the Bears.
Yeah. California. So the one of the things that to kind of compliment a little bit about what you said, I shared with you when I reached out to you. I'm surprised that Christianity churches haven't grabbed on to what I like to refer to as Web 3 and decentralized and get on all of that, but just Bitcoin, capitalism, freedom. I joked with you that when I've had evangelical Christians look at me and say, I think Bitcoin's from the devil, and I say, well, then that'll just put it with the even with the dollar bill. Let's just see how this plays out. But there's a lot of freedom in it, and I look at it as pure capitalism, ultimate wealth distribution. We've talked about all those things, but you want to let's talk about that. You talk about the social layers and parallel the Bitcoin economy to that, and the Orange Pill app. Why don't you go into that here for a while?
Yeah, well, to your point about the why Christians haven't taken it up, I'm right there with you. I think that that's a big reason why I wrote the book. Even in the dedication to the book, I dedicate the book to the church, then to my mom, then to my wife. There's a three-part dedication, but the church is, I actually put it there, and with the blessing of my mother and my wife, the church was the first dedication, because I want Christians to adopt this. I think that if you read through Proverbs, where it talks an awful lot about economic systems and what God detests and what God blesses, God does not like unfair economic systems. The Proverbs talk a lot about unbalanced weights and unfair economic systems and people that take advantage of other people. The Proverbs talk multiple times throughout the 31 chapters of Proverbs. And so Christians should adopt Bitcoin because it actually is a better form of money. It's a more moral system. And so let me give you an example here. I have 4 kids. I have 3 biological girls and we have 1 adopted son. He's the oldest, and so he's 10, and my youngest, she's 5. They tend to be the most in conflict. They were all sitting around playing a game of Monopoly. We have children's Monopoly at our house. And I love Monopoly. It's a great game, but I was just sitting there watching them, or I wasn't watching them the whole time. I'm walking in the room, kind of watching them for a few minutes. And my boy had been sticking the dollar bills, the cash, under the table and hiding his money. My 5-year-old, she rage quit the game. She was so frustrated by him because he kept hiding his money, and she felt that that was cheating. And so they had this big argument where she threw over a bunch of the houses and she walked away. And I said, why did you walk away? Why did you yell at him? Why did you get mad? She goes, because he's cheating. He's hiding his money. That's not fair. And so sure enough, we looked up the rules. And in Monopoly, you're not allowed to hide your money. You have to place your money on the board. That's part of the rules of the game. And so the reason why I use that analogy is because even a 5-year-old understands that a game that does not have clearly defined rules is not worth playing. It's immoral, it's not fun, it's not good to play a game to which we don't know all of the rules. And so when I talk to friends or Christians in the church and the same question comes up inevitably, and that's good. I ask the same question. You ask the same question. We all should ask that question. That is a good question. We should be skeptical at first of Bitcoin. But when they say, oh, the dollar and it's is the Bitcoin the devil? I'd say, tell me how many dollars are in existence right now. And they say, I don't know. And even if they're a smart financial advisor, they might talk about the M2 money supply or some kind of quantifiable thing that the Feds put out. But at the end of the day, we don't really know how many dollars are in existence. We just don't. We don't know how much the U.S. is going to borrow next month. They say how much they're going to borrow, which is like crazily more than what we spend on national defense. That's how much they're going to borrow over the next 3 months. There's all sorts of crazy things out there. But we do not know. The U.S. government is essentially hiding their money under the board. My 5-year-old knows not to play that game. But with Bitcoin, the rules are clearly written. Anybody can write the rules. And we all know that there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin ever in existence. Everybody knows the rules. Everybody gets to play the game by the same rules. So the Michael Saylors of the world, the guys that hold hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, or the little guy in a remote village in Africa who has a few 100,000 sats to his name, which for those that don't know, sats are just pieces of Bitcoin. They both, yes, one is going to have more and one is going to have less, but they both play by the same rules. Nobody ever said that this is going to be socialism and everybody's going to have the exact same amount of Bitcoin. But what they are promised is that everybody plays by the same rules. And that system has just never existed in the history of humanity. And so as a Christian, I think we should push for fair and just systems, not in this captured, socialistic, communistic, political sense, because all systems, if you're a Christian, you believe that humans are fallible. So we shouldn't put more people that are fallible in charge of these systems and trust them. What the Bible tells us is that people are going to mess up. So the best thing you can do is make the rules based on mathematics itself. Do you need to trust in that 2 + 2 = 4? No, you don't need to trust in that. That's just an axiom. We know that that's going to happen. And that's the kind of certainty we have with the rules of Bitcoin.